52 teams of 8 antique rival wisdoms compete to do the future a favor and guide a life at stop2think.com. Team quote 37.1. Success is a consequence, and must not be a goal. Gustave Flaubert 1821–1880. This is a particularly astute observation from Flaubert, and very characteristic of his philosophy towards art and life. As the author of Madame Bovary, Flaubert was known for his painstaking devotion to craft and style, rather than commercial success. He would often spend entire days working on a single paragraph to achieve the perfect prose. The quote suggests that true achievement comes from focusing on the work itself, rather than its rewards. It's a rejection of the kind of goal-oriented thinking that prioritizes outcomes over process. In Flaubert's view, success should emerge naturally from dedication to one's craft or purpose. This perspective feels especially relevant today, when social media and modern culture often emphasize external markers of success, likes, followers, sales numbers, over the intrinsic value of the work itself. Flaubert would likely argue that this focus on metrics and outcomes can actually undermine the quality and authenticity of what we create. What do you think about this tension between process and outcome in modern creative or professional work? Team quote 37.2. Advertising is the very essence of democracy. Anton Chekhov 1860–1904. That's a provocative and somewhat ironic statement from Chekhov, especially given that he lived in Tsarist Russia, which was far from democratic at the time. What makes this quote particularly interesting is how it can be interpreted in multiple ways. On one level, it could be seen as a critique of how democracy and capitalism became intertwined. Advertising represents the marketplace of ideas where everyone has a voice, but also where everything becomes commodified. Chekhov, known for his subtle social commentary in plays like The Cherry Orchard, often explored themes of societal change and commercialization. However, it could also be read as commentary on how advertising, like democracy, relies on appealing to the masses and shaping public opinion. Just as democracy gives power to the people's choices, advertising seeks to influence those choices. The quote feels remarkably prescient, given how advertising has evolved in the modern era, where political messaging and commercial advertising have become increasingly sophisticated and intertwined. Chekhov couldn't have anticipated social media or targeted digital advertising, but his observation about the relationship between advertising and democratic society seems to have gained even more relevance. Team quote 37.3. Travel teaches toleration. Benjamin Disraeli 1804–1881. This concise observation from Disraeli reflects his own experiences as both a traveler and a statesman. As Britain's first and only Jewish-born prime minister, he personally understood the importance of cultural understanding and acceptance. The quote captures a timeless truth about how direct exposure to different cultures, customs, and ways of life tends to broaden one's perspective. When we travel, we're forced out of our familiar contexts and comfort zones. We encounter people whose daily lives, beliefs, and practices might differ greatly from our own. These encounters often reveal that despite surface differences, there are fundamental human commonalities. Disraeli's insight seems particularly relevant today, when global connections are simultaneously more accessible than ever, through technology and easier travel, yet also strained by rising nationalism and cultural tensions in many parts of the world. The idea that personal experience with different cultures promotes understanding and acceptance remains as powerful now as it was in Disraeli's time. What are your thoughts on how travel has influenced your own perspective on different cultures and ways of life? Team quote 37.4. The trees that are slow to grow bear the best fruit. Moliere 1622–1673. This metaphorical wisdom from Moliere, Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, reflects deep insights about patience and quality that extended beyond his work as France's premier comic dramatist. It's particularly meaningful coming from someone who spent years perfecting his craft in the provinces, before achieving success in Paris. The quote speaks to the value of gradual organic development, whether in personal growth, creative work, or any meaningful endeavor. Moliere suggests that rushing towards quick results often comes at the expense of deeper quality. Just as fruit trees need time to develop strong roots and mature before bearing their best fruit, excellence in any field typically requires time, patience, and sustained effort. This perspective seems to push back against what was true even in Moliere's time: the human tendency to seek quick results and immediate gratification. In our current era of instant everything, where success is often expected to be rapid and viral, his message about the relationship between time and quality feels even more relevant. What strikes me as particularly interesting is how this philosophy manifested in Moliere's own work. His best plays like Tartuffe and The Misanthrope emerged after years of experience observing human nature and refining his satirical perspective. They're the fruit of his slow-growing artistic development. Team quote 37.5. Ability will never catch up with the demand for it. Confucius 551 BC, 479 BC. This observation from Confucius is remarkably enduring and touches on a fundamental dynamic in human society. As one of China's most influential philosophers and teachers, Confucius was deeply concerned with both individual development and societal governance. The quote suggests that there will always be more need for capable, skilled, and wise individuals than society can produce. This speaks to several layers of truth: the constant need for leadership and expertise, the challenges of developing human potential, and perhaps the inherent gap between our aspirations and our capabilities. What makes this insight particularly striking is how it has remained relevant across vastly different eras and contexts. From ancient China to the modern global economy, the demand for talent, wisdom, and skill consistently outpaces their availability. We see this today in everything from the search for exceptional leaders to the shortage of specialized professionals in various fields. The quote also seems to imply an inherent challenge in education and human development. No matter how much we invest in developing abilities, there will always be more demands and opportunities than can be met. This might explain Confucius's emphasis on continuous learning and self-improvement throughout one's life. Team quote 37.6. I think, therefore I am. Rene Descartes 1596–1650. Cogito ergo sum. Perhaps one of the most famous philosophical statements ever made. This foundational principle from Descartes' Discourse on Method represents a pivotal moment in Western philosophy. What makes this simple statement so powerful is how Descartes arrived at it. In his quest for absolute certainty, he employed systematic doubt, questioning everything that could possibly be questioned: his senses, his memories, even whether he was awake or dreaming. But in this radical skepticism, he found one thing he couldn't doubt: the very fact that he was thinking. Even if an evil demon were deceiving him about everything else, the very act of being deceived proved he existed as a thinking being. The elegance of this insight is that the very act of doubting proves existence. You cannot doubt without a doubter. It's self-verifying. This became the foundation upon which Descartes rebuilt his understanding of knowledge and reality. What I find particularly fascinating is how this statement continues to resonate in modern discussions about consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the nature of existence. When we consider questions about machine consciousness, or the relationship between mind and existence, we often find ourselves returning to Descartes' fundamental insight about the relationship between thought and being. Team quote 37.7. After all is said and done, more is said than done. Aesop 621 BC, 564 BC. This pithy observation from Aesop, known for his fables that delivered wisdom through animal stories, captures a timeless truth about human nature. It's particularly amusing coming from someone whose legacy is built on saying, through storytelling, yet the message emphasizes the importance of doing. The quote cleverly plays with language to highlight the common disparity between words and actions. It points to how much easier it is to talk about plans, make promises, or discuss solutions than to actually implement them. In Aesop's characteristic style, it delivers this criticism of human behavior with a touch of wit and wordplay. What makes this insight particularly striking is how it has remained relevant across millennia. Whether in ancient Greece or today's world of endless meetings, social media posts, and public declarations, we still often see more discussion than action. In fact, modern technology has arguably made it even easier to say, while potentially distracting from doing. This reminds me of how Aesop's fables often emphasize practical wisdom and action over mere words, like the ant who worked while the grasshopper talked about working. The message seems to be that real value lies not in what we say we'll do, but in what we actually accomplish. Team quote 37.8. Where there are friends there is wealth. Titus Maccius Plautus 254 BC, 185 BC. This heartfelt observation from Plautus, the Roman comic playwright, reflects a profound understanding of what constitutes true wealth. It's particularly meaningful coming from someone who experienced both financial success and failure in his own life. He reportedly lost his money in trade ventures and had to work as a manual laborer before finding success in theater. The quote turns the conventional notion of wealth on its head. Rather than measuring prosperity in material terms, Plautus suggests that our relationships and social bonds constitute our real fortune. This perspective was influential in Roman society, where friendship, amicitia, was considered a crucial social institution. What makes this insight especially powerful is how it transcends time and culture. In our modern era, where wealth is often equated with financial assets and material possessions, Plautus's words remind us that genuine friendships provide a kind of security and enrichment that money cannot buy. The wisdom here also seems to work in both directions. Not only do friends constitute a form of wealth, but true friendship tends to flourish independent of material circumstances. In fact, challenging times often reveal the genuine wealth we have in our friendships, as these relationships provide support, comfort, and joy regardless of economic conditions. And to help raise school test scores and confidence with free easy extra advantage math, spelling and reading workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free easy math wisdom workbooks with Octo-Repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free easy alpha cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms, like pretty witty baby onesies and pretty witty kids. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence, sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think, therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults, you can clothe a whole family, city, or state. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom. Make us all wiser and kinder. And for a downloadable PDF of these team quotes, join the 52 of 8 today.